Waheguru ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru ji ki Fateh. Ramzee Kahania, Chap.2, Khoji di Nirashta, The Explorer's Disappointment. Far from civilization, in the middle of a dense jungle, an explorer once found a great treasure of diamonds, rubies, and other precious stones. He was overjoyed and had at once tied a bundle of all that he could possibly carry. He was, however, amazed to see that from the place that he had taken the precious stones from was again refilled by more jewels. He then started experimenting, taking out stones, gemstones, and making different little heaps. But the treasure, instead of diminishing, was at once replenished before his very eyes. When the explorer was convinced that the treasure was inexhaustible, he thought he should go and tell his countrymen about it. He thought that all the poor people may become wealthy and happy. Later, other countries could be told about the treasure, and soon the whole world could be rich. The whole world could be rich, happy, and satisfied. There was no road leading to the treasure from the jungle, which was inhabited by fierce wild animals and surrounded from all sides by steep cliffs, almost impossible to overcome. The explorer was rather disheartened to see that, and it would be extremely difficult for his countrymen to reach there. They would have to cross such dense jungles and scale such rugged mountains. But he was, after all, an explorer, a man of firm conviction, who, once he had made a decision, rested only from when it was fulfilled. Sitting there next to the treasure, he was determined that he would not stop until he made the treasure easily accessible to his countrymen. He would do this even if it took his whole lifetime. The explorer placed a bundle of jewels on his head, and slowly, after months of difficult travel, having put up with all hardships of the journey, returned to his country. He went to the biggest jeweler and presented one of the diamonds for sale. The jeweler was amazed. How could he assess such a stone like this? He had never seen such a thing before. He bowed at the explorer's feet and said, "Sir, I don't have the capacity to buy this diamond. I can only offer all that I have for being so fortunate enough of having a mere glimpse of it." The explorer laughed and said, "O jeweler, if you cannot pay the price for this diamond, you can have it for nothing. Give me just enough money to start building a road from my country to the mine, where there are countless diamonds of this sort. Then my countrymen will be rich, and having improved their lot, I can bring prosperity to the world at large." "Sir," the jeweler replied, "even a king cannot pay the price of this diamond, but if you're generous enough to give it to me, then I can give you 200,000 rupees, with a hope that they may perhaps be of some small help towards your charitable cause." With this money, the explorer got together a team of engineers, explained his entire project, and the construction of the road from his country to the treasure. The project was begun. Whenever the explorer ran short of money, he merely sold another jewel from his bundle to some rich man in his country and continued the work. Rivers and streams had to be bridged. Many rest stops had to be built for the travelers. Mountains were cut and jungles were penetrated to make a narrow path to the treasure which was unlimited, the treasure which was inexhaustible. When he had built the road, the explorer thought that as one had to pass through many hills and jungles, there should be a book which could act as a proper guide for his countrymen. A book which laid down the exact route to the treasure, mentioned all the difficulties which one would encounter, with ways and means of avoiding them and overcoming them. This way his countrymen and their children could always have an access to the treasure and live happily. Taking great pains, the explorer got a book ready which included detailed instructions necessary for the travel. He lovingly got the book printed and made sure that everyone, from the king down to the poorest subject, got a free copy of it. It had taken the explorer many years of hard work to make the road to the treasure and in having his guidebook printed and distributed. Now, having accomplished such a gigantic task, he returned with some of his friends to live a life of peace and quiet in the valley not far from where the treasure lay. In this manner many summers went by. The explorer had now grown old. His life, filled with charity, had brought contentment to his heart. He loved the quiet and peace of the hills so much that he wanted to become a part of it eternally. The continual demands of his body resulted in thirst and hunger, seemed like a load on his mind. He wished to free himself from the glimpse of the fruit of his labor of his lifetime, so he went down to his country to visit his countrymen. The explorer went in disguise. Although in disguise, one or two people were still able to recognize him. Within no time, the news of the explorer's arrival spread like wildfire. Wherever the explorer went, thousands came to see him. They placed garlands around his neck. One businessman even made available his horse-driven carriage and requested the explorer to purify it by riding on it. The explorer was made to sit in the carriage, which was loaded with flowers, and a procession of thousands followed him through the streets of the capital. From the windows of the roofs and the houses came a shower of flowers. When the procession reached the king's palace, the explorer received a guard of honor by the royal army. The entire royal army came out to greet the explorer with folded hands, and the king addressed him. "Maharaj, you have made known to us this immense treasure, in front of which our own treasures are insignificant. For this reason, you are the king of kings, the Shah of Shahs. Compared to you, even the great Maharajas and emperors are nothing. Their treasures are finite, whereas yours is limitless. These worldly kings are false and perishable. You are the only true king of kings. I greet you on behalf of my family, my country, and subjects. Please grace my palace and stay for a few days. We would like to organize a grand welcome for you and present you with a roll of honor." At first, the explorer was perplexed as to why, after so many years, his people had not become rich and happy. But now he was even more surprised and wondered why his countrymen showed him so much respect. Some days later, the king arranged a grand reception for the explorer. Banners were seen hanging all around. "The country welcomes the explorer. We revere the explorer. A man as great as the explorer was neither ever been born, nor will there ever be one of his stature. Long live the explorer." The road from the palace to the grand stand was lined with a red carpet. By the appointed hour, the explorer was brought from the palace with great pomp and show. The king himself, along with his ministers and other officials, carried the palki, bearing the seeker on their shoulder. The procession was led by a contingent of troops with a royal band and followed by presidents and heads of various societies and social groups holding signs praising the explorer. On both sides of the road, ladies of the town showered the palki with flowers. When the palki reached the grand stand, there was a 31-gun salute from the fort. The explorer was seated on a chair made of gold, and the leading ladies of the town performed arti on the explorer. The queen herself applied a tilak on the explorer's forehead, and cries of "The explorer's country and countrymen are blessed" arose among the population. Later, the high priest of the country read out the welcome address. "Pride of the human race, the nation's greatest well-wisher, worshipful and revered sir, we the people of this country have assembled here today to express our extreme gratitude for your hard and selfless work in locating this inexhaustible treasure, building a road leading to it, and writing a guidebook enumerating all the difficulties which are encountered on the way, and freely distributing it among the population. Actually, we can never really repay you for what you have done for us, but still, a poor attempt is being made by this meeting to express our heartfelt thanks. From the very beginning of creation, no man has done such a great service for humanity as you have. Up to this day, whatever man has been receiving has been something finite, which could be counted and measured. That which was perishable and consumable, but your holy book tells us that the treasure you have found is limitless and inexhaustible. We are indeed fortunate to have such a great soul in our midst, who has uncovered this great treasure. The greatest jewelers of our time have testified that the treasure holds extremely rare stones that are of great value. We are very proud of the fact that our country has produced such a great personality, and blessed are the parents who have given birth to you. Respected sir, you will be happy to learn how highly we, the countrymen, rate you. The book you have written is considered by us to be just as holy as your own person. Our book is worshipped in every home, and with its help, we keep our memory enshrined in our hearts. We offer flowers to your book, burn incense, and dress it during the summer in silks, and during the winter in velvet. The path shown by you in your book is considered by us to be the holiest and highest in the world. The person who refuses to worship and respect your book as we do is considered by us to be very evil and ignorant and a very low person. Your birthday and the day of the inception of this holy book are considered to be the most auspicious days. On these days, we all get together, narrate your life history, explain how you came upon this immense treasure, how, braving a lot of difficulties, you prepared the path leading to the treasure, how you wrote a guidebook acquainting us with the path, and how the book was freely distributed amongst the rich and the poor alike. We considered you to be not only a man, but a saint. To tell you the truth, lots among us have a firm conviction that you are God himself, and that by making this limitless treasure accessible to us, you have come to give us salvation. Worshipful and divine Master, without being guilty of hypocrisy, we can sincerely say that we are ready to sacrifice our body, mind, and wealth for you, and if need be, our very lives. A man who is disrespectful towards you is despised and severely punished, and the person who worships some saint other than yourself is banished from this land. In the end, we give you the assurance that as long as our country and people exist, we shall worship no other person. Your holy book shall be revered and worshipped in the same way as a saint in flesh and blood, and our body, mind, and soul will always be at your disposal. We are indeed fortunate that you have been kind enough to come down to us in your old age. We have been trying for ages to locate you and honor you in public on behalf of the whole nation. But despite our best efforts, we were unable to find you. We have been very lucky to have been able to offer our heart's devotion at your feet. Love and respect for you will always overflow from our hearts. We shall always sing your praises. For years we have been yearning for a glimpse of you. We, your disciples, respect and adore you. When this welcome address was read aloud, a loud applause was heard from all sides. Flowers were showered on the grandstand. The king then stood up and welcomed the explorer on behalf of his country people. He requested him to appease the hungry souls of his people by saying a few words. This was followed by cries in support of the request made by the king. Ever since the explorer had returned to his country, he had uttered very few words. He was merely observing and pondering over the entire situation. On being forced to speak, the explorer conveyed the following message through one of his friends. Dear countrymen, seeing the welcome you had given me, many different thoughts arise in my mind. I would be grateful if you could give me a few days to put down on paper what I would like to say to you. Voices arose in answer from all sides. Our body, mind, and soul are at the explorer's disposal. Whatever you say is acceptable to us. The same day, the procession carrying the explorer returned ceremoniously to the palace and ended there. Some days later, the people received this letter from the explorer. My dear countrymen, I am extremely grateful for the warm reception that I have been given. Thank you, too, for the welcome address. You had requested that in answer to this I should say a few heartfelt words. It would have been better if you hadn't asked me to do so. I would have liked to take my views back with me, but as I have promised earlier, I am forced to comply. Please forgive me if my views offend you in any way, because these thoughts come from my heart. My heart has always been anxious for the service and welfare of its countrymen. When I found this immense treasure in my youth, I thought that instead of giving it to my own children, why not offer it to my countrymen? By this their poverty of centuries could be removed. They could gain freedom over their material wants and live a carefree life. With this hope, I built the road to the treasure after years of hard labor and gave full particulars regarding this road in my book. This book was freely distributed to all people in all walks of life. All my efforts were aimed at freeing my country from poverty and misery and raising to a new level of plenty. After doing all this, I decided to live the rest of my life in the hills near the treasure. Being immersed in life of total happiness, I was unaware of the passage of time. Now when the desire arose within me to finally immerse myself in the great silence of the hills, there was only one thought that stopped me from doing so, the desire to see with my own eyes the improved and happy condition of my country. I returned and found absolutely no difference in the state of affairs. Hunger, scarcity, worry, disease, ignorance, and hate, which are the signs of poverty, are still present today. Happiness, contentment, health, knowledge, love, harmony, and trust, which are the signs of the absence of poverty, I have found to be existing in a very precarious condition. On the contrary, I have seen such new practices amongst my countrymen, which I didn't even know existed. Instead of reading my guidebook, amassing wealth from the treasure, and making their lives happy, my countrymen have started worshipping my book. Instead of walking the path shown in my book, they have started offering flowers to it. Many societies and institutions have been founded in the name of my book and myself, which instead of taking advantage of the treasure shown by me, aim at proving that I am not a man but a saint, a god, and that to please me I must be worshipped. My people are ready to wring the neck of anyone who calls me an ordinary man and dislikes worshipping me. But as for the way of amassing wealth, which I have outlined in my years of hard work for the service of my countrymen, no one has bothered to pay any attention to it. Did I go through so much trouble just to have my book worshipped? What good is this worship to me or my countrymen? My happiness laid in seeing my fellow brothers rich and happy, and not in having my own person worshipped. Whom have they pleased? I cannot deny the fact that my countrymen love me and respect me in their hearts, but I cannot refrain from adding that this love and respect has been expressed in such a way that neither I nor my countrymen have benefited themselves in any way. I am now returning to the hills, near the treasure. I do not want to maintain my aged body any longer. I want to merge in the great silence of the hills. My soul will intermingle with the Absolute and will spread throughout my land. I will await the day when my countrymen will be rich and happy. If my fellow brothers really love and respect me, then they must read and ponder over my book. They must travel using the instructions laid down by me and reach the limitless treasure. They must take wealth from it according to their needs and live a life of happiness. My soul can never be appeased by having my book or my own image worshipped. I will be happy only when I see my brothers and sisters raised to my own level of happiness, and will not consider the service I have put in for the nation to be of any use, till the country as a whole, lives in a state of bliss. Your servant and well-wisher of his countrymen, the explorer, the Khoji. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji